Guys, my name is Mac again, and we're right back here in my home in Lexington, Mississippi for another segment of On the Road with the SPRA. You know, last weekend, the SPRA took us to a couple of great trips over that Georgia line, and the first stop was to Dallas, Georgia, to the third annual Paulding County Public Safety Rodeo. Boy, Mr. Matt McGee was behind the mic over there. They had tons of great entertainment, and when I say entertainment, I'm talking about people like the INSP phenomenon, the Cowboy Ways, one and only, the infamous Mr. Booger Brown, who happens to be on the phone with us here today. Booger, thank you so much for joining us.
You bet, Mike. Glad to be here, buddy.
Man, we're just glad to have you. You know, the Southeast Professional Rodeo Association, along with Frontier Classic Rodeo, they are what I call a winning combination. Last weekend, Frontier Classic Rodeo teamed up with Mr. Seth Bice and Bice Rodeo Productions over there in Dallas, Georgia, to put on what I saw as a phenomenal show. I wasn't able to be there, but you were. And before we get into the nuts and bolts and all the action there, I want to skip forward to what I think was probably the highlight of the evening, when your very own son, Matthew, won the mutton busting.
Man, you know, Matthew, he hates them hairless sheep. I don't know what they are. Generally, they don't have any hair, kind of a hump back, and they have to put a strap under them. And the last time or two, he had to ride them, and he hates them. And it's generally like whoever draws the weakest one rides. So when you come in there and you get the big woolly sheep, oh, he's all for that. And that's the sheep I like, too. And when he knew we was having the woolly sheep, man, here he come climbing the fence. He was ready. And I told him, I get him all psyched up there at the last minute, you know, and I told him, I said, you hang on to him, and I said, I won't let your head hit the mud. I'll pick you right up off his back. And when that sheep come out, it run clear to the other end. And I run as hard as I could down there to catch that sheep without falling down in the mud and tried to pick him off his back. I just wanted to hold up a word, but it wasn't within a second when he hit the ground, I snatched him up.
Man, so I saw the video. You were in hot pursuit. The sheep was on. Dude, Matthew was hanging on like a cat squirrel on a screen door, dude. He wasn't coming off that sheep.
I told him to never let go till I got him. He was doing all he could. He rode him for 3 days. Finally, he fell off.
The ride was awesome, and I'm going to tell you, Mr. Warren Petty with Southern Shooters Photography captured that moment. It couldn't have been done any more perfect. The picture I've seen of you holding Matthew up is priceless.
Man, that thing blew up on my fan page, Instagram, the Cowboy Way page. And that boy, every time I'm on the mic, I give that guy a shout out. Me and you was at a rodeo ways back, and
yeah.
It was mud, it was knee deep boot. I mean, it was, you know, high, wasn't knee deep, but it was as high as your boots out there. And he was out there laying on his belly, crawling around in that mess. And I was like, he'll lay down, he'll do what he's got to do to get the shot.
He absolutely will. You talked about whenever you're on the mic, you give that man a shout out. Now, speaking about the man behind the mic this weekend, you got to share that with the phenomenal Mr. Matt McGee. You know, how was that?
That's the first time I've ever got to work with Matt, and I've been lucky, man. I've been very fortunate here, starting to work with a lot of good announcers like Matt, like yourself, and I learned something every time, and I learned even more from Matt this weekend. I know one thing: he's never short on words.
Not a chance. I'll tell you who else is never short on words. That is multiple-time SPRA Funny Man of the Year, Mr. Trent McFarland.
Trent, he's got different jokes every time I see him. I love his old jokes, and you know I've got him hired up for this year for him to come into my rodeo on November the 7th.
You sure do. That's your Cattle Drive, right?
That's it, Cattle Drive Rodeo, Sampson, Alabama. Cattle Drive, of course, it's going to start. Everybody shows up on the 4th, and we drive cattle on the 5th, 6th, and 7th. That morning we drive through downtown Sampson, and in the evening we have a full rodeo, and we're going to have it bull riding, and we're gonna have barrel racing, and then we're having some other events included, you know, that's not sanctioned, like I call it the Midnight Cowboy. You have to get on your horse, or you have to unsaddle your horse, lay your head on the saddle, get in a sleeping bag, jump up, put your boots on, put your hat on, run down the other end of the arena, rope a yearling, and then your heeler's in the buck and shoot. They crack the gate, and here he runs down there and heels him. Just stuff like that. We got a bunch of different things we're going to do, and and then, of course, that night we have a big old band. I got Spencer Maggie, he played for me last year, and he is flat sure good.
It is the Western way of life and the cowboy way at its absolute best. I promise you. You know, Seth Bice with Bice Rodeo Productions over there been putting this rodeo on for 3 years, teaming up with Frontier Classic Rodeo, who will also, Frontier Classic, they'll be at your trail ride rodeo as well, right?
That's right. And we'll be having a bull ride and be sanctioned, and the barrel racing. Of course, anybody can buy a $10 permit and enter up. It's a pretty unique rodeo. This ain't your traditional rodeo like Frontier normally does. I mean, it is, and then it ain't. I've got a lot of the ranch-style events, you know, added to it just to make it so much funner and give it a little more punch and just something else to go along with it. And, you know, a lot of these folks that come to the Cattle Drive, this is their only opportunity to enter a rodeo. They might not be a full-time cowboy or something, and, hey, I want to give them the opportunity to do that.
Well, I know everybody's looking mighty forward to being down there. I wish Dickens I could join you guys, but I had a previous engagement. You guys are going to have fun there at Booger Brown's trail ride or cattle drive and rodeo on November the 7th. You know, back to Dallas, Georgia. Man, the action, just looking at the fast times and high scores, wow. I mean, in the bareback, Cody Warnock, the number 2 cowboy, looks like he comes out, his shaps flopping and popping from the video I saw. 75 points, James Bearden and Billy Hudson tallied up those scores. Our SPRA judges, 75 points to Cody Warnock in the bareback. Then we went to the classic event of rodeo, the saddle bronc riding. Now, Jared Dillon, you know, he's been around a long time, and this cowboy works hard at it. I'm proud to see he put down 69 points for that second place win. But then the man that's been on fire. Now, I heard you say about Joe Farron at a previous rodeo that you and I worked this year, that Joe comes out, and every time you see him ride, he spurs him from his ear hole to his tail hole. Let's recap that.
That's it. Joe had a rough weekend. I don't think he didn't draw horsepower. He could have rode 2 of them like that at the same time. And I wish he'd have got a little more horsepower up under him because Joe can flat sure show out on one. And I always love watching him. He pretty much puts on the same bronc ride about every time you see him. He just comes out and starts raking and sits dead in the middle of him. I tell you what, if you're competing against him, you better hold your breath when he's down in the chute because he might be fixing to take your money.
You better pull your hat down tight because you see Joe Farron get in there, son, it's going to get ranchy. I promise you. The Cowboy's sitting number 1 in the SPRA World Standings for a reason. Congratulations to him and his 75-point ride. On to the tie-down calf roping. The Cowboy, man, these calves, dude, these calves look like they were probably coming out of there like bullets from a gun. When 17-time world champion, the man from Waycross, Georgia, Mr. Justin Thigpen, takes home the second place check with a 12-3. You know those calves meant business.
Them calves was running, bud. And every one of them, some of the breakaway roping, too, for the ladies. I mean, they was getting with it. The pen was muddy and slick, and they was having to hustle hard. Of course, when they hustle hard, a horse has to stop hard, too. So, and there was a lot of bad luck. You know, it was wet. It was muddy. Picker strings was getting in the mud. And we had, man, a couple really good runs in the tie-down roping, but the calves got up. They didn't stay tied 6 seconds, so there was no times there. And I think the weather had a lot to do with it.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Andrew Turpin comes in there, and he goes, hey, Justin, you might be a 17-time world champion, but I'm going to do my best to whoop you. And he did with a 12.2. That's how close it was in the tie-down calf roping. And you mentioned the breakaway ropers, the pretty cowgirls, and the horses there that stop and break the rope away from the saddle horn. The cowgirl that took home the third place check, I like to call her a vet squared. Ms. Rhonda Ellison is a veterinarian, but she's also a veteran in the United States Air Force. She's sitting number 1 in the SPRA World Standings right now. And I'm going to tell you, she and her family go up and down the road week after week. They exemplify that family lifestyle of rodeo as good as any and better than most. She comes in there and dobs one on there. The rope says pop. The clock says 2.9 seconds for her in the third place win. Miss Casey Parr cinching up the second place win with 2.7. And Tracy Edmondson bowling everybody over with a lightning fast 2.5 for the win in the breakaway. And we went from those cowgirls right on to another group of cowgirls, the pretty cowgirls and the lightning fast American quarter horses. Man, these quarter horses, they're the most versatile four-legged athlete in the world. When we talk about different events, I like to say, they go from 0 to 30 in only 3 strides. Well, they don't just stop at 30 miles an hour. They gain speed, and in the barrel racing, they did just that. Even on the wet ground there, Michelle Quinn, boy, she's been hot to trot this year. 15.334 on the 3rd place win. Darrienne Gaines, another one of those cowgirls that's super consistent. Looks like she'll be making her way to the SPFR in Philadelphia, Mississippi. She laid down a 15.209. And then the number 1 cowgirl in the world standings right now, Miss Angela Hudson from Utah, Alabama. On the buckskin horse she calls Amazing. Angela is a former world champion. And, dude, she has a lead over everybody else right now that is just out of this world. I'm talking about several $1,000s.
Dang.
15.059. Getting around 3 cans there and getting back to that timeline and stopping the clock with a 15.059 for the win. Man, that's a bunch of cowgirls that came in there to show up and show out, and they did. Looks like they did just that.
On some muddy ground, too.
Yeah, I'm telling you. So, on to the, what I like to call the dynamic duos of rodeo, the team ropers. It's the only event that requires 2 people to create one time. And, I'm going to start out here with, actually, I'm going to call out 4 places. That's because in the 4th place, on the head side, he's your reigning SPRA world champion, Mr. Billy Perry, teamed up with Shane Edmondson for a 10.1. Marcus Terrio and Chase Graves in there to get that 3rd place win with a 9.9. Now, Marcus, boy, he is probably one of the most decorated cowboys in the Southeast for sure, and maybe America in his age group. This cowboy has won everything under the sun, and he really has been showing out in the SPRA this year. He and Cooper Christensen are battling it back and forth for that all-around title, and Marcus came this weekend kind of like a snarling wolf and pulled several checks. On to the 2nd place win, Joey Carpenter from Laverne, Alabama, and the big man from Calera, Philip Kels, getting that 2nd place win, stretching one out in 6.3 seconds. And then the team roping legends, Ryder Ladner and Chase Graves, the duo from the Magnolia State down around Poplarville, Mississippi, 6.2 for the win in the team roping. Booger, did it get salty?
It did. Philip, the rain, got a lot of rain throughout that, and then finally broke off there towards the end, and I seen Joe and Philip there. They run in slack that evening, but, man, they went out there and hung it on after a bunch of guys was having trouble in slack, getting the job done, and then them 2 boys just went out there and stuck it. And then, but they would come in 2nd place. But, it's all part of it. There's a lot of things have to come together. And I mentioned that the other night during the rodeo. There's cowboys and cowgirls, and there's horses and the ground and the cattle, and everybody's got their own brain thinking a different way.
The stars have to align, and everything pretty much has to be just right. And a lot of these talented cowboys and cowgirls, I like to say they show some grit and never quit, and they make something out of nothing a lot of times, and that's what separates the champions from the competitors, I'm going to tell you. And, last and certainly not least, you mentioned you were adding this to your Cattle Drive Rodeo this year, the bull riding, the big bad bucking bovines. Man, how were the bulls this weekend?
Bulls did good, in my opinion. They Cowboys had some tough times, but we did get a couple covered.
Yep, we did get a couple covered. Trevor Miller, 75 points for that 2nd place win. And then Nace Boswell taking home a check for the 2nd week in a row with 83 championship points to win the bull riding there at your 3rd annual Paulding County Public Safety Rodeo. Man, Booger, thank you so much for going over there to the rodeo and all the support that you have shown the SPRA this year and the Frontier Classic Rodeo Company. Man, it's been a pleasure working with you on the few that I've been able to do with you. And I like to encourage everybody again. Booger, just give a little recap about your upcoming Cattle Drive and Rodeo.
Well, we got the Cattle Drive. You show up on November the 4th, and you leave on November the 8th. November the 5th, we drive cattle all day. November the 6th, we drive cattle, come back into camp around 1 o'clock, and then we'll have a team pinning that evening in the arena. We have a little jackpot team pinning. And then Saturday, we take the cattle to town and come through town between 12:30 and 1 o'clock. Drive right downtown Main Street, 150 head of cattle. Streets are lined up with people. Take a couple hours off, and we start the rodeo that evening at 5 o'clock. After the rodeo, we have a big band, big concert, and just like they did in the old days, drove the cattle to town, then have a party while they was there. And then come Sunday, we're having a pasture open right there on the place. It was gorgeous weather last year, turned out really big. I haven't got the flyer done yet, but I will have some information on it, and it should be pretty big right there on the spot. Right there at the campground, everybody's camped out under a bunch of big, beautiful live oak trees, and every day we haul out and bring cattle back to camp every morning. So we stay in the same spot every night.
Man, talking to you about this event has got that on my bucket list. I hope I get to make it next year. Like I said, I'm just devastated that I can't get there this year. But you want a good time, guys. If you went out to Dallas, Georgia this weekend, thank you for coming there and supporting the family lifestyle of rodeo. You want another good time, mark your calendars there for November the 7th and meet Booger Brown. You're going to meet my man Jerry Bird there behind the microphone, the fabulous Trent McFarland making everybody laugh, and all the other, what we like to say, the Cowboy Way events that Booger's adding to this event is just going to be a barrel of fun. He's going to treat you so many ways, you're bound to like one of them.
We're going to have if anybody's interested in being a part, just go to boogerbrownalabama.com and sign up, and that's my website. And, of course, we're going to have that call in on the Monday before if they want to enter up. And first come, first serve, but we'll have plenty of room. And I've even was told, I haven't got it nailed down 100%, but the wagon train that used to go to the Bonifay Rodeo is supposed to be coming from Milton up to the Cattle Drive this year. So we should have a cattle drive coming through town a quarter or half a mile long.
Nice. Booger, thank you for joining us so much. Guys, my name is Mac again, and I live right here in Lexington, Mississippi. Thank you for joining me on the road with the SPRA. www.sprarodeo.net. Y'all come see us.